The last few years have seen a huge shift in the popularity of anime and how it's produced. More and more shows are being created than ever before, and so even more anime are now breaking into the mainstream. One of the most significant ones in recent years is One Punch Man. One Punch Man was released in the anime fall season of 2015, based on the manga created by One and drawn by Yusuke Murata. If you're fairly familiar with the manga industry, you may be questioning what I just said. One Punch Man by two people? In the manga industry, due to heavy restrictions and a forced fast workaround time, manga is normally created by one person, labeled the mangaka, who normally will complete a chapter per week in order to submit to or continue with a magazine, such as Shonen Jump. So why then was this a duo effort? Hint, and this might sound slightly contradictory, it actually wasn't. You see, the anime adaptation may be based on a manga, but the manga itself was also an adaptation of the original, which was drawn entirely by, of course, One, the creator. So why was this redrawn at all? Some of you may already be aware of One's off-kilter art style, so the answer is simple. When One Punch Man started to be created, it was more of a passion project that was released online, and due to not having strict publishers luring over it, he was able to have a more free art style. One managed to gather interest around his property, which made people look into the financial viability of it. After determining that it could be a success, it was redrawn in a more contemporary mainstream art styles to appease a more mainstream crowd. Why does this matter, though? Well, other than being super cool, it actually marks a potentially slow but large shift in the industry that I believe we are already starting to see. The rise of webcomics into the anime industry. In the mid-2000s, there was a rise in these short 40 to 50,000 word novels in Japan. The popularity was starting to become a financial viability for producers and companies. The properties were made primarily by no-name amateur authors, and the drawings were made by either decently known online or completely unknown artists. But the concepts and characters were far more willing to go out there and be much more crazy than other media. On top of that, like I said, the books were often marketed with a cute anime style on the cover that would represent the characters in the book, so of course, they had a tie-in to the subculture of anime and otaku. Eventually, a few managed to actually get anime adaptations with some varying success, before somebody laid their sights on and produced something that was the equivalent of a bomb being set off. In the spring season of 2006, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya was adapted, sending permanent ripples in the anime industry that would change the way that people made anime forever. From there, many more light novels came out. It was easier to adapt light novel properties than manga, partially due to the fact that manga came out in short weekly segments and light novels could be released once a month or once every 2 months, meaning that there was much more material to go off of. Because there was so much more material to go off of and it was adapted so much faster, this meant that the studio could jump on the hype train of a series very quickly and capitalize on it, having to worry less about its sustained popularity if you waited to adapt it. With manga having segmented release times, there were many times where shows had to make the call, purchase the licensing while the series is popular, then adapt the series when the manga is far enough ahead to do it faithfully, which then, of course, had the negative side of risking it losing popularity by the time they adapted it, and they end up wasting their money on the licensing and losing money, or start adapting the series to anime and build on the already existing hype, which would then either risk catching up to the source material or forcing filler, or the dreaded anime-exclusive endings, which most of the time is poorly received. It was just less risky from a financial perspective to look at light novels. Obviously, light novels were not a trend or a phase, as the show after show has come out with varying success, leading to a consistent flow of light novel adaptations. But the fact that there are so many adaptations, more and more people are jumping in the ring and trying their hand at writing something. And this is making a clear marketability in mind of many of the people who are writing their novels, which can be evidenced by what's being currently adapted and the types of things that were being adapted when companies started looking at light novels. The out there unique ideas are becoming more flavor of the week and less thought out, and that is causing some of these more innovative studios to now look somewhere else new to turn. Where are properties written with a lot of thought and potential? Properties in a not too oversaturated market, somewhere that has more creative freedom and has out there concepts that are not polluted by the fact that, ooh, I could get successful. Webcomics being adapted into anime are not totally unheard of before One Punch Man, like with light novels with Haruhi. There are many varying successes in the last few years, Watamote being one from the fall season of 2014 and Barakamon from the summer season of that year, although it wasn't entirely a publisher-free agreement. But after seeing the huge splash left in the mainstream as well as in anime culture, it only made sense that people are now looking for the next good property. Summer 2016 released one of One's other webcomics, Mob Psycho 100, but this time around there was a little bit of risk not taken before. Now all of a sudden, One had this huge successful show under his belt. So, studios, specifically Bones, took the jump to not wait for a redrawn manga or a reimagining with the adaptation. This is important because this could be seen as a company recognizing the viability of webcomics and willingness to give them a mile instead of an inch, to compromise to keep the artistic integrity more. Why do I think that this marks the start of something big in anime? Look at this season alone. Two of its biggest hitters and most praised shows of the season are both webcomic adaptations. The first of the two is Surezure Children, which came from a 4-koma manga format. In the back of the serialized version of Volume 1, Wakabayashi Toshiya states in his afterword, "This manga started off as a little piece published online as an add to Barona series that I was drawing during a time that I was less known than I am now." Continuing a paragraph down, "But at the time, I became very attached to the manga, and unlike with commercial magazines, with me taking on a lighthearted mindset, and that since there are no deadlines, then I don't care if it doesn't sell. I simply thought, I want to draw more, and continued to do so more as a hobby after losing my job." Also, if this little snippet piqued your interest for what the afterword has to say, I do recommend you buying the manga. It's really cheap on Bookwalker. No, I don't have a code, but it's still reasonably priced regardless. It's one of my personal favorites from the summer 2017 season, and the mangaka seems like a pretty cool dude. The second big one, while not as popular in numbers, has some of the most critical reception of the season, setting it next to plenty of the other popular shows. That show is Made in Abyss. It's much more common knowledge for this show that it is an online comic, as people have been talking about how it gets disturbing from before the show even started airing. I believe that Made in Abyss could have been even more popular than it is currently if not for the fact that it is an Amazon Strike exclusive, but in spite of that, it is very popular, and it beats out similar high-acclaim shows on the platform, such as Welcome to the Ballroom. While it really is too early to tell, this should serve as evidence that the niche known as webcomic adaptations are growing, and with a reputation that precedes them. I want to make clear that I don't think this is going to replace light novels or manga, as that is a somewhat ridiculous claim, but to think that the future of anime is looking bright, and that the anime industry is still, after all of this time, finding new ways to expand and reinvent itself. And a lot of that can be attributed to Mob Psycho 100 and One Punch Man. Thank you guys so much for watching me again, or for the first time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really want to thank all of the people in my last couple videos that have shown me so much support. I'd always wanted to make a YouTube channel talking about the things I love, and to have anyone watch it is really humbling, and it puts a spring in my step while I'm going to my boring college courses. If you thought Surezure Children and Made in Abyss seemed cool and want to hear me talk about it more, I actually made a video on both of them, so go ahead and check that out.